Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. Welcome to a new video. So in this video I have a real-time tutorial for you. I am drawing horse fur with colored pencil on paper, Canson 1557 paper as always. And it's palomino fur, so light orangey beigey fur, which can be quite tricky with colored pencil. So I hope you'll enjoy. Real-time narrated, so I hope you'll find it interesting. The whole piece is available on Patreon. It's already an older piece, by the way. I made it 1 year ago, so the audio might be a little bit different, as I didn't have my microphone back then. But I hope you'll enjoy anyway. And then I'll catch you at the end of the video. Enjoy what. So the fur on the forehead is a little more pinkish. So I want to add some more pink tones there. I'm going to start out with Nougat, which is not a pink tone, but just for mapping out the direction of the fur here. Make sure to follow the curves. Alright. Still think about this starting point here. The fur is growing around that, so as soon as you get above the eyes, the fur will start growing upwards from that starting point. I'm not really focusing on the forelock yet, I just want to put in the fur on the forehead and then we'll see what to do with the forelock. As long as the layers aren't that thick yet, and as long as you haven't burnished, you will still be able to erase. So you can also erase the forelock, the lighter hairs there. Focusing on the shape of that white marking now. Try to get it as accurate as possible. If you were drawing someone's horse, an owner would notice immediately if the shape of a marking is off. So if you are practicing to do pet portraits, make sure to keep an eye on those markings and make sure that they are very accurate in shape. Alright, so I have the fur mapped out now. Let's go in with the base color. And I want to go in with cinnamon. Maybe a little bit of light flesh first. Okay, a little tiny layer of light flesh. I don't want to make this too pink. So I'm almost using no pressure here, just glazing. Let's go over with cinnamon now, which is a little more natural looking. I'm holding my pencil quite close to the edge, to the outer edge, because then you will automatically use less pressure on the pencil. Alright, so now I want to add some warm gray 3 to compensate the pinkishness of the base tone now, before we start adding the darker shades. Alright, time for some of the darker shades. And I want to start off with Bister, because some areas are a little more yellow looking. Going to start off here above the eye, where the fur is a little bit darker. I'm just using light strokes. And I keep following the direction of the fur growth. Now it's time to start focusing on all the details as well. Fur gets a little darker here underneath the forelock, adding a tiny shadow with the bister. And I'm working my way around the white marking. It's starting to look a lot more like a horse now. It's really starting to come together. That's what I like about drawing horses. At the start it feels like you're working on all those little segments, but in the end all those segments come together and it looks like a realistic horse. I want to add a little bit of ivory. Because I feel like some areas looked a bit too pink now. But you can easily contrast that by just glazing some ivory on top. Alright, so I want to do a tiny bit of burnishing. Not a lot, making sure that the pencil is very sharp. I just want to get rid of some of that paper texture, but I'm pressing quite lightly because I still want to add some more layers on top. I want the forehead to look very soft, so I don't want any paper texture showing through. Alright, time for some more color. Using a tiny bit of burnt sienna. For a little bit more depth in the fur. But not too much, because the burnt sienna could make the fur look too red quite easily. I don't want that, so I'm doing this quite carefully. Just adding a touch of that. A little bit more cinnamon. Just to darken up the base tone a little bit more. Feel like it could be a bit darker. And now I'm going to take nougat to add some more texture in the fur. At this stage it's really important to work with sharp pencils, otherwise it might look blurry, the fur. I switched to Bister again for a second. I felt like it needed more Bister. So it really takes a lot of time to find the right tone. Fur like this needs to be built up in lots of layers. Alright, now I want to add the nougat. Using it mostly in the area where I see some darker shadows. Alright, so that is it almost for the forehead. Glazing a little bit more bistre on top. Let's zoom out and see what it looks like from a distance. Yeah. I feel like all the colors fit together nicely. Now it's time for a very difficult point in the drawing, which is the forelock. Alright, so I feel the forelock needs some preparation. First I want to make sure that all the outlines are correct. Let's also map out the fur in between the forelock clumps. Doing that with Nougat. I also indented some of the hairs, so we will see these pop through. And then we have a bit of fur there. Alright, so I'm going to be drawing around the forelock. For that shape, want to get that shape right. Making sure to use the same colors as I used for the rest of the fur. Nougat, cinnamon, a bit of warm grey. I want to make sure that the forelock is nicely outlined. This is always a bit of a difficult part, especially if the forelock is lighter than the rest of the fur. So you have to take some time to get the shape right. Then let's also fill in this part. Going in with bister. Here we have a bone, so the bone is casting a shadow right there, so it's a bit darker there. Follow the curves of the bone as well. Alright, so now I'm going to do some burnishing with white in between the forelock. So that's the difficult part about colored pencils. You can just like with pastel pencils, you can't do the white fur on top of the darker fur, so if an area is lighter than the other, you'd have to draw around it. Then I like to make sure that I have the darker part filled in first, and after that I can draw in the forelock. Let's complete this area above the eye, which is a bit darker than the rest. Cinnamon. Little bit of bister. Alright, so now before I fill in the forelock, I want to do some erasing with the Tombow eraser with a knife. I'm cutting it off to a sharp edge so I can control it really well. Now I have this sharp edge, if you can see it. Then I'm going to erase out the tips of that hair. Also right here. So erasing colored pencil is always a bit difficult, but it's not impossible. I also did some indenting, of course, so I'm going over those indents once again just to lighten them up a tiny bit more. I will probably use nougat, warm grey and a bit of ivory the most. Going to start off with warm grey, number 3. And with that I'm going to create the shadows in between the hairs. So these mane are quite warm. There is a warm yellow tone to it, so I won't use any cool tones on the forelock. I will stay with warm grey, a bit of yellow, ivory, maybe a bit of nougat, but not more than that. I want to keep it simple and light. Try to separate all these different clumps that you can see. So we have one here that is going over the forehead. Trying to stay super light at the edges. There are some hairs here that I indented. Want to erase them some more. You really don't need to do a lot to make it look natural. I will keep this as simple as possible. Some shadows are a bit darker, so then I press a little more. Alright. Don't want to do a lot more on this, but I do want to give it a tone, a little bit more color. I'll be doing that with a little bit of ivory. I want the color to be slightly different from the tone of the background. The background is of course completely black and white. So by giving this slightly different color, it will stand out from the background a little bit more. I'm not pressing hard. Don't want to make it look real yellow, but I just want to change the tone slightly. Alright, and now with Nougat, I'm going to draw in the darkest shadows and tones that I see. I see some dark hairs in it here and there through the mane. So I just draw in some frizzy hairs. The hairs are not straight, they're quite wonky. So I keep my strokes light and wavy. Alright, so that's that. What I now need to do is to give this part some shading and the top part of the marking as well. So the round one and the straight one, because you can see the obvious direction of the fur there. So I'm going to do that with a warm gray again. Make sure it's very sharp. And I'll start with that starting point. It's about there. And then it goes around like a little star. It's so important to also add shading to white fur. Drawing around that little piece of forelock here, which you almost can see. Then I'm cleaning up the edges of the markings a little bit more. And this is how the direction of the fur goes in all horses. So keep an eye on that. Even if you can't see it, this is how the fur grows. So it starts there and it goes outwards towards the eye, and upwards towards the ears, and downwards towards the nose. Alright, let's add some shading here. Alright, time to complete this area now, and then we can move on to the neck. Alright, so this concludes this video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know below in the comments. And for the full tutorial, it's about 15 hours. You can have a look on Patreon for the $7 tier. And yeah, thank you so much for all your support on there. I will try to upload more videos these weeks because of what's going on. Maybe you can use a little bit of distraction. So I'll try to upload more. But we'll see if I can manage to do that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys!